Thank you. It's really my pleasure and honor. Thank you to White to Tall. And this is Russ from Social Collider. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I always believe, right, everything happens with a spark, right? Just like from science point of view, the Big Bang, right? And it's all because of sparks, right? And how do things spark? It's from collision. And at Social Collider, we hope to be the the collider, right? The catalyst that collides people, that collides events, and then from there, may sparks fly. Right? So that's in a gist, in a nutshell. Yeah. So I think I'd like to share two things or two key themes in my life that I feel has led to Social Collider. I've never been entrepreneurial in my life, led a very typical I would say Singaporean life, right? And especially during my generation, I'm in my 40s now, time flies. So, and during my time, it's always, graduate, become a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, right? And when you talk about, you want to do a startup, people will roll their like, what, are you out of your mind, right? Kind of concept. Now, of course, that was 20 years back, right? Now everybody talks about that. So, at that time, but however, having said that, if you look at my trajectory, I've always been good has always been one part of component in my life. Whether when I was in secondary school, in JC, right, I was volunteering on my personal behalf or donating. And then when I was at university, I would take part in events that reach out to disadvantaged youths, and then try to help them and motivate them in some ways. And then I was a teacher for 10 years. And then when I was a teacher, I was heading at that time it was called the CCE department, the Character and Citizenship Education Department, right? And I was championing projects and trying to teach this, in doing good for the society to the students, right? And then finally, I went to Tsinghua and then in Beijing where I did my MBA, and I think that was the major turning point in my life. So if you look at it, one key theme is experiences shape action, right? What do you see will leave an impression on you. And one day when that accumulates enough, it will be the tipping point and you will project you to do something else, right? So a few key parts, right? And a few key experiences. The first was, I think something that left a very deep impression was when I was a teacher. So I taught at a school in Tampines. It was even though every school is a good school, some schools are better than others. So mine is the good school, right? And so the socio-economic status of the school, of the students, they are from lower middle to middle class, right? So one of my students, there was one day I was the form teacher of this class, and there was this girl in my class who did not come to school for many days. So when I called home, right, the mom would always would verify that the girl's right arm was in pain, right? And so that's why she did not come, right? So when I did home visit, I noticed that the home was simple, it was a flat, however, it was sparsely furnished. And money was tight. Single mom with 5 kids. So even though our polyclinics are very affordable, right, they decided to save some money and just let the girl have some aspirin to painkillers, right? Half a year later, the girl fainted at home. When rushed to the hospital, was diagnosed with stage 4 bone cancer, right? And 1 year later, she died. Right? So I always thought to myself, in our land of crazy rich Asians, where plenty, food, resources, things like that can happen. So I always thought if they had a little bit more money, right? I don't know why I didn't do it. I should have said, just go to the polyclinic, I'll pay for you. I don't know, or did I say that and they rejected? I can't remember. But having said that, if she had a little bit more resources to go to see a doctor, would she still be around? I don't know, right? Nobody knows. So that was one of the lasting impressions. A couple of years back later, I was sent by the ministry to Laos. So I was seconded, and I was doing government training in Laos. Love that place. If you haven't been there, I think it's beautiful. It's amazing. And people there were so inclusive, right? They were so inclusive. And so sidetrack a little bit. Laos in fact, it is the world's most heavily bombed country per capita. Right? During the Vietnam War, I think more than 20 million tons of bombs were dropped, and a lot of these they were stuck in the mud. They did not explode, so unexploded ordnances, right, during the Vietnam War. And it was by proximity, because there was one part. In fact, Laos is a landlocked or land-linked country, and with 5 other countries, and Vietnam is one of them. So So when I was there, I saw how inclusive business was, right? The small businesses, they hired, whether it's the family or they just hire people who only have one limb, right? Only one leg or one arm, or yeah, right? And I thought, wow, that should be how business is, right? And these people, they're just as useful as you and I, right? And cognitively, that's nothing, they're just as good as you and I, if not better, right? So that was also one part in my life that I noticed that business should and can and must be for good. So, so earlier I mentioned, right, experiences shape action, so all these I think accumulated. And I think the tipping point was when I was in China, where I did my MBA at Tsinghua University. And my thesis was to help this charity become more sustainable. Because this charity helps children impacted by AIDS in China. Impacted means what? It means the parents have died of AIDS, but the kids are healthy. The parents are HIV positive, the kids are healthy, or the kids themselves are HIV positive. But why was there this AIDS epidemic? So in the mid-90s, a lot of pharmaceuticals went to this part of China called Henan to buy blood. It's the needle, right? And huge demand, huge supply. The local hospitals couldn't support this transaction, right? So what happened was underground stations sprouted, and whatever could go wrong went wrong. Reuse of syringes, and there's this process known as plasmaresis, where plasma is extracted and the rest of the blood transfused back. So to save time, the underground stations will be like, okay, all 10 of you just go and lie down there. So all the blood went into this, container machine, and then after like 1 hour later, the blood transfused back. So those of us who have taken biology will know that you can't even mix bloods tight, right? Because that will form clots, right? Like, yeah, not much less to say all the various viruses and diseases. And that was how AIDS spread so rampantly, right? And whose fault was it? I would just say it's situational, right? It's because, and of course, I'm not sure whether it was ignorance or people just didn't know, right? Or I hope it wasn't the case. Well, I hope it wasn't because they didn't care, right? Then that's why it spread so rampantly. So when I went to do the interview, I went with the founder to the villages, right? They were some very obscure, you wouldn't have heard of them. And that was when I realized, wow, I thought I had seen poverty, but this was probably one level down, right? Because even though when people think nowadays of China, they'll say, oh, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, it's vibrant. And it's true. In many, many, many ways, they are way advanced than Singapore, right? In 2012, when I was there, I was using mobile payment. 2012. We only launched in 2017 or 18. Right? Anyways, so that aside, so I was reflecting and I was thinking to myself, why would people need to sell their blood? It's no other reason, just poor, right? Just poverty. They were earning about 500 kwai a month then, which was about 100 Sing, 500 RMB, 100 Sing. A bag of blood would get them 20 Sing equivalent of RMB. Yeah, if it were me, I would sell my blood every day, seriously, if I could, right? Because imagine, to them it's like, oh, I didn't have to do anything, just lay down there and then the blood was extracted. And it's, and they felt fine, right? So a lot of them, they went, once a month, once a week, and it just, luckily it was controlled very quickly, right? The moment the government realized that, but that was about 1-2 years later already, right? The harm. So in some villages, up to 90% of the residents, 90, were infected. Yeah, and this was made into a movie by Aaron Kwok and Zhang Ziyi in 2011, I think, right? The whole situation. There was a lot of articles written about it. So I think one thing good was that the government, gave them free medication, those who were infected. And I think that's a good way. So many of them are still alive. I was talking to this 22-year-old girl, right? That was a couple of years back. She is HIV positive. And it was because when her mother was giving birth to her, the mother was transfused tainted blood. Yeah, so for her, she was so upset about it, the girl, and then she was like, because since young, she was said that, oh, don't play with other people. When you fall and let's say you cut yourself, right, you need to learn a special way to do your dressing, make sure you don't keep in contact with anyone, how to throw things away, the dressing, yeah. So at that time, I remember she told me she had a boyfriend, right, whom she was very close with, and they would even talk about marriage after they graduated, right. But then when she told the boyfriend that she was HIV positive, right, the boyfriend went radio silence for a week, and she's like, okay, she's resigned to her fate. However, the boyfriend came back and said it's okay, because he did checks, and he realized that with medication nowadays, the viral load is negligible, right? This is already proven. So they can have healthy baby, they can have a relationship, they can get married. And I think that is the beauty of science. So coming back to our story, I deviated too much. Right? Coming back to our story, yeah, the realization that, you give a fish, you feed a day, right? And you teach the fish feed for life. But at that very moment, I realized that feeding for life is not enough. The villagers, they could feed themselves alive. They wouldn't die of hunger, right? If they have more than one child, right, and it's allowed in the villages at that time, they could have more than one child. Let's say one boy, two girls. Who got to go to school? It's the boy, right? The girls, age of 16, they'll be married off, or at the age of 12, they'll be sent to work. And I was thinking, 12, I cannot imagine that, right? I mean, and here we are. So in hindsight, so experiences shape action, right? And it was when, I had the opportunity to start Social Collider, but that was 3 years later in 2018, right? To me, the vision is always to create the marketplace for people to sell the fish, right? So you give the fish, you teach the fish, but they need an avenue to sell the fish, right? You don't know how to sell? I teach you. I don't know how to sell? I don't know how to teach you? Then maybe somebody else teaches you, right? Because I think within my network, I do have some contacts and resources. Right? I don't have money, but nonetheless, I think I do have some friends who can help. So coming back to that, so that's the first part of the story, and that's why, right? And the second part, very quickly, is about, I think a lot of times we need to be ready. I'm not religious. However, increasingly, I'm beginning to believe in the notion of luck. But luck to me is not from the divine. I attribute it to the three components. The first is timing. Second is readiness. Third is action taken. So back to my point. After Tsinghua, I graduated in 2015. In 2014, after that, I worked at a university for 1 year to continue my research and also to teach. So the professor, liked what I was researching on, and we created a class, and then I was co-teaching with my professor. So 1 year later, an NMC knocked, so I joined an MMC, and I was looking into the diversity and inclusion strategy there. But that's the story. So after 3.5 years, I decided to leave because it was too much traveling, and I felt really tired. I put on a lot of weight. Yeah. So in a month, I'll be traveling between 2 to 4 weeks, right? Yeah, like this week I could be in the US, next week I'll be in Penang, the following week I'll be in China, and then in India, and then, so there were many times when I arrived in Singapore at 7 a.m., then 3 p.m. I'll be out again. A lot of people say, wow, that sounds fun. No, it's not. Yeah, it's really not, right? So that aside. So I still remember, first week of July 2018, I attended, without telling anyone, I attended, right? Second week, there's this government organization that contacted me, through somebody else, that contacted me and said, hey, Russ, we know you're interested in this social space. We have a space at 1 North. Do you want to come take a look? I was thinking, wow, how did they even know? I even asked my HR manager and said, hey, you help me to inform Ministry of Manpower, is it? They said, no, please, come on, you're not even a C-suite, you're just some assistant director or something, So I was thinking, oh, okay. So anyway, so I went, took a look, right? Submitted proposal, and the last day at my previous company, the proposal was approved. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, really. I mean, goosebumps for me. I was thinking, okay, whatever. So anyway, but I already bought tickets. The entire August, I was supposed to be traveling right into China to Penang, right, to visit my friends and say, hey, bye. Yeah. Having said that, I cut short, and so instead of 1 month, it became like just 2 weeks. And I was rushing, and the rest is history, right? So that's just one example. The other example about this luck, right? It's I was at Singapore Red Cross for a meeting, and then when I was walking down the stairs, I walked past this young man who was going into the general office. So when I walked past him, he kept looking at me, and I couldn't recognize him. When I was about to leave the building, I heard Mr. Neu. I said, I turned around. Jeremy, my former student. So I said, hey, what are you doing there? So he was a volunteer, and he said he left his old job and bumming around for a couple of months, right? He couldn't find a new one. So I said, okay, send me your resume. Yeah, I left my previous company. I left corporate life. Nonetheless, don't know what I can do for you, but anyway, send me anyways. So I passed him my name card. I had no other way to contact him, right? We didn't exchange numbers, so I just passed him my name card. That night, he sent me his CV, his resume. 2 days later, the HR manager at my former company called me and said, hey, Russ, do you have any engineers to recommend? So I pulled out Jeremy's CV. he was engineer trained, but he was with the Navy for 6 years. So a lot of the MMCs, they discount military experience, right? Yeah, because they felt that it wasn't the commercial kind. Nonetheless, I sent the CV over. 1 month later, Jeremy called me. He got a job, and I was like, "What?" It's 1 second, right? I mean, yeah. So timing. If he had walked faster to the general office, we missed. If I had slowed down, tied my shoelace, went to the toilet, 1,001 permutations, right? That we could have missed one another, but we just met. So to me, timing, it's so important, right? And it's like those Korean shows, right? Boy meets girl at the airport, and then, something sparked, but then maybe they were not ready then, maybe both had partners then, right? And then 3 years later, we reconnected. So same thing. So timing. However, timing, I think it's only the first part. You always have to take action, right? If he didn't call me, if Jeremy didn't call me, that's it, full stop, So he called me, right? And then, of course, if he didn't send me his CV, also full stop, because I didn't have any other way to contact him, right? And of course, I forwarded for him, right? However, I think all these are just, and of course he was ready. He didn't say, sorry, I need 3 months notice, right? Or my CV, I need to prepare. No, he was like, okay, then he just sent, right? So, however, I think in the world of business, right, timing, but we always don't know when the timing is. It's always in retrospect. Oh yeah, I'm so glad I met Chrissy, I'm so glad I met, right? So we always don't know. So that's why I think when opportunity knocks, just open the door, man. Just go, because you don't know what will spin out, right? And so you need to take action. When opportunity knocks, you need to take action. Readiness, I think along the way you can make yourself ready. Along the way, it's fine, right? But when you say opportunity, just when the wave comes, right? If you are not already surfing at the top, then you'll be swept under already, right? So you always need if you're not ready, you can still learn to balance at the top. So anyways, long story, so I'm just gonna stop here for now. Thanks. But again, every time I'm like, yeah, so malu, so paiseh, to reach out and ask for sponsorship or ask for money or ask for business, right? I'm not even asking you to just I'm doing you a service, right? And just pay me for it. However, that's why we always need to go back and anchor ourselves into our purpose and belief. What is our purpose, right? What champions you? What propels you to do what you want to do in the first place? So for me, I always have to go back, because sometimes I'm just swept away by everything. I'll be like, oh my gosh, there's 3,005 million things to do, right? But I have a great team. I'll not mention names, but yeah, but I have a great team, and I think they and I'm so the entrepreneurship journey is it's really lonely and tiring. So it's important to have a team, right? And I think my team is, and I'm really appreciative of them. So that helps tremendously, right? When you reflect about things, and then you go back and say, wow, and then you go back to anchor yourself, and then the next day you're ready to move forward again, right? Also self-care I think that's actually, so that's something that I also want to share, always self-care. I also don't have this, what's the right word? Martyr kind of syndrome. Oh, I want to sacrifice myself to save the world. No, please don't. Okay, because, but however, I think, right, in the Chinese word, right, you leave the mountain, there will be trees to cut for firewood, right? Right. So likewise, okay, I think it's very important that we self-care. If it's really tiring, talk to people, take a step back, right? And then once you're ready, charge again. Yeah, it's always about trying, but I feel that Singaporeans, we are very comfortable in a very large extent, so we are very afraid of trying, right? Oh, I'm okay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, I think it's just what propels you, right? And what motivates you, right? Have you found the tipping point? If not, it's fine. It's fine to, there's no right or wrong answer, I think. Although I think we should just take a step back, look at the whole picture instead of being just pigeonholed. I mean, having come from a civil service and then corporates and now doing my own things, right? Yeah. Sometimes I wished I had the stability of corporates, right, or the stability of a civil service, and then the high flying of a corporates. However, I feel that in terms of purpose, in terms of aspiration, right? What are we supposed to do, right? I believe to a very large extent the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where self-actualization. I don't think I'm self-actualizing now. However, I think I'm going towards there, and I feel that because my basic needs are met. In fact, I've known of people who just jump, right? They just feed them. Then, in fact, a lot of religious figures, a lot of say, I mean, if you look at their stories, right? They just a little bit of eats, and then they could self-actualize already, right? Yeah. I think the first key thing is get out of your comfort zone. right? Of course, that's something that takes a lot of courage. Not everybody is. Not having said that, and getting out of comfort zone doesn't mean that I just throw you into a different environment totally, right? You can even slowly, let's say if you're afraid of public speaking, just go ahead and challenge yourself, right? What are you afraid of? What are you? Like for me, I love to eat. You look at my size, I love to eat, but I don't have the patience to cook. I just, like, the other day I attended a cooking class because it was, and I was like, no, like, prepare nasi lemak, chop you have to peel the cucumber, you got to chop. I'm like 20 minutes into it, I'm like, oh gosh, can I just be get a free loafer, really, really. But yeah, I just forced myself to go through it, and I'm like, as you force myself, it began to be very pleasurable, right? By the end of the 2 hours, when you eat your nasi lemak, I was thinking, wow, okay, that tasted good, but would I go through again? Ooh. So, right, maybe a simpler version, right? Yeah, like I just put everything into a pot, pour a lot of water, soil, then throw all the vegetables in, boil, and then I'll just eat that, like a soup thing. So anyways, coming back, so out of a comfort zone, right? Just get out of your comfort zone, and if you can, go to a developing world, go to another country. It doesn't matter developing world or not, right? And when I say go, I don't also mean just go there for 3 weeks to like a tourist, right? Go there and stay for 3 months if you can, whether it's a job attachments or further your studies, right? Or do some volunteer work, because then you realize, wow, it's very different. Because when we travel, most of the time we have a rose-tinted glasses, right? We see things differently, like wow, so fun. However, when you stay there for a long period, you realize, wow, everything is terrible. Right? Yeah. So coming back out of comfort zone, and if you can travel, right? And then of course not now. Then internally in Singapore, what can we do to get out? If you're a person who hates to hike, like all the mud lah or whatever, sweaty, then challenge yourself to do that, right? Yeah. So that's one. Second, be humble, because I think a lot of times. We always feel that, hey, we're from Singapore, man. I mean, I look at a lot of these service learning projects, because I've led more than 20 to overseas, right? Students, adults, university students, whoever, right? Grassroots leaders. And I find that a lot of us, we think, wow, English is so good, we want to go there and teach English. I'm like, hello, I was an English teacher for 10 years, and I think my English sucks. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm serious about that, right? Having said that, I think a lot of us, when we go overseas, we say, hey, we want to help others, we want to help this community. However, I think that's not exactly right. We are helping ourselves first, right? And I think this is one key point that I hope everyone also takes away with, right? Because when we go, I'll give you an example, because I've led more than 20 overseas service learning trips, right? To Laos, to China, and from primary school kids, secondary school, to JC, to university, to adults, right, to corporate, when I was in corporates. And one key example is, like say 3 of us, let's say for them, for the villages, it just takes them 3 days, 3 of them 1 day to build like a small toilet. But for us, it took us like, there are 20 of us 3 days to build, right? And then we were burdening and we're slowing them down. Of course, they're very patient, right? So coming back then, when we go, don't have this, I would like to use savior mentality. However, go there with an open eye and see what we can learn, right? Put ourselves out of the comfort zone, right? And then you find that, wow, and then of course be humble, and these are the 2 key things, right? Of course, at the same time, of course, all this within the safety boundary lah. Don't go and say, oh, I'm going to climb up the mountain and help the community there. It's always within the safety boundary, right? Yeah. So I think this was some of the key messages that I hope our young folks, our watchers will take away with. Yeah, I think for a start, I think 3 points. The first is, right, what do you see in society, or right? Don't say, don't tackle everything at a go, right? Don't say, wow, there's a forest fire, let's go and fight the forest fire. It's impossible. There's nobody in the world, no organization, no country in the world that can do that. There's no, right? And much less to say us. However, what we can do is we fight the forest fire just within our doorstep first, right? For a start, right? For example, you can prepare more water. These are things that we can do, right? And then build up our resources, build our strength. So likewise, if I were to come back to the D&I space, what are the things that you see that, in society that you think there's a gap, right? Is it with the people with disabilities? Is it the elderly, the single parents, the ex-offenders? What is it that you see? Okay, and that resonates with you, right? A lot of the people whom I've spoken with, right, in the social entrepreneurship community, right? I think 10 out of 10, nobody says, oh, I do this because I want to be the next unicorn. Of course, that'd be great, but nobody says that. It's always because, oh, my grandfather has dementia, and I feel that there's some things that probably it's not in the market or nobody can support. That's why they've decided to spin off something, right? But it has to touch you deeply, okay? And don't chase trends. Don't say, wow, now it's about anti-plastics. So a metal spoon, okay, everybody goes in, or metal straw, everybody goes into metal straw. Please don't, okay? Please don't, because by the time you are ready for the trend is over, next thing already. Okay, so coming back, right, what motivates you? Look at the things that really touches you. Right? Second, what are the issues that face the underserved community? What are the issues that you think? Okay, is it like, for example, single mothers? Like say, for example, is it employment? Is it right? Is it something that we can do more sustainable than just giving money and just giving donation? Because I think people also want to have dignity, right? And we want them to have dignity. Not that giving money is not dignified. However, I think if it's more sustainable, they may feel better themselves, right? So sustainable meaning employing them, hiring them, and then tweaking the working environment instead of saying, oh, you must come 6 to 5, right? 6 to 6. Maybe 9 to 6. Is there another way to say things like, oh, you can come, just you can work from home or things, right? Yeah. And finally, what is your solution? What do you think can do something about, right? It can be from a grassroots angle, can be a one project just for now, right? But if you're really passionate about social entrepreneurship, that is potentially something that you can jump in, because it is a business that tackles a particular segment of problem in society, right? So you sustain yourself. It's not a charity, because charity every year they probably will ask for money, and then right. So you're sustaining in your own way, right? And when you expand your business, because the impact is already built into the DNA of a company, when you grow your business, you also grow, right? The impact that you are making. I absolutely agree with you, right? And why poverty, right? If you look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, no poverty is the first goal. And it's something that I believe in. If there is no poverty in the world, or if poverty is tackled, I cannot say we can alleviate poverty 100%. We can eliminate, but I think we can alleviate, or we can just move the poverty line up, And I think probably more than 70% of the world's problem will be solved. You talk about zero hunger. Come on, why would people go hungry? Just no money lah. It's not like, oh, I'm fasting, or I'm trying to lose weight, right? Or you talk about inequalities. Why are people why is there inequality? Because most of the time it's because there's not enough resources, right? So boys got to go to school, girls stay at home, that kind of concept and mentalities. And a lot of times it's just because of poverty, right? And coming back to your point, the poverty that I've seen in other parts of the world and in Singapore, other parts of the world, poverty, people will die from that. Like they've no food, literally no food, right? They can't see a doctor, they just die from that. However, in Singapore, I think it's markedly different, and I'm thankful for that, right? We are, number one, we don't have winter, so we won't die of cold, right? Yeah, number two, our water is clean, we have and our food is pretty affordable, right? And so even if there's no food, there's a lot of charities that will say, okay, we will deliver food to you, right? Yeah. So coming back then, right, our poverty is not that we don't have, it's that we don't have enough, right? We don't have enough of the good things, right? So there's food. However, the food could be just vegetables and rice, but maybe we can have a little bit more balanced diet, because rice nowadays, as we know, is high in don't know what index. And I know because right now I'm part of this glucose study, and I've been experimenting. When I eat white rice, gosh, the sugar in my body takes about 3 hours to digest, right? But if I eat, let's say, more protein based, right, like tofu or meat, then you find that within 1 hour, the glucose gets digested very quickly, right? And of course, in the long run, that will lead to diabetes. So coming back then, I think a lot of our food, yes, we have food, right? However, it's not the quality kind. It's not it's enough to fill your tummy, right? You won't die from it, but is there something else that we can make it better? It's more of a quality of life, right? So that's something that I learned from my colleague, Aldrin, right? And it's about, we should improve the quality of life. And I think that's something that is true, right? It's not just about, and of course, the next thing is it possible to break the poverty cycle, right, for them? And I think in Singapore, it could be a little bit easier because our structure, we do have a format or structure for people to to find jobs or to help them earn a little bit more income, right? Yeah. So that's the main gist. Our poverty is markedly different, more quality of life, I feel. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for asking that. And I'm also very passionate about our migrant workers, or I'll say our migrant brothers, right? Migrant brothers lah. So especially during this COVID period, they have not been out of their dormitories other than to work for more than a year, right, since April 2020. And I know because I've visited them. I adopted about 100 of them in the Tagore Lane, and I try to like buy them soccer balls or give them like National Geographic. However, that's different, right? Because compared to going out, there's only so much I can do. So recently, with the rising numbers and with the dorm cases, the lockdown is even tighter for them already, right? And I don't see an end in sight at the moment. Nonetheless, I think what we can do, or what I can do, is to try to make their life a little bit better through giving them better food, right? I've seen the kind of food that they've eaten, and it's not food that you and I would want to eat, or I wouldn't want to eat, right? I'm not picky, but I wouldn't want to eat as well, right? So right now, I'm doing a fundraising movement, right? It's just to raise one meal per day, $1 per meal per day, right? So 3 meals, $3 per day, just to increase their quality of life through food, right? So it's called the Love Through Food campaign, and I believe, because I think, if one has not lived well, if one has not dined well, one has not lived well, and one therefore cannot work well, right? This is just one of our basics of again, back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. So for me, I'm always passionate about social entrepreneurship, that is business that also tackles social issues, right? And that's something that I've been championed, and I'm thankful that last year I was appointed a visiting professor under United Nations program to push this movement across Southeast Asia. So we have started with the Philippines, because I can't speak Vietnamese. Right? I mean, I also can't speak Tagalog, but Philippines, they speak very good English, right? So I've already started this movement at 2 universities there, because I think increasingly, especially post-COVID, right, people have to realize that it's not just about doing business anymore, it's about doing business that helps society as well, right? You've got to balance between the two, right? Because the current method of doing business is not sustainable. You cut down the trees, you pollute the ocean, and I think people are recognizing that, right? Whether we're too late or not, that's another discussion point, right? So coming back, that is something that, it's the core of it's the core of social collider, because you talk about poverty alleviation, right? That is what I'm championing, and that is what the vision of social collider is. Back to the point, like experiences shape action, and that's when I realized, wow, so social collider is 3 years. I think it's still young, right, in a business sense, and of course, I would like to think, last year was a non-event here where we couldn't do a lot of things, but I get energized and I get rejuvenated when a lot of the former students, right, or people who have gone through my workshop, and they have gone on to spin off a social enterprise, spin off a business, or a social business. And that in turn helps the society so much, right? And they've come back to say that, hey, because of this, then something else spins out, right? That propels me, and that affirms that, hey, maybe what I'm doing is right. I'm not totally successful. To me, success is when I can have sustainability, and then the impact. I think impact part, somebody just commented, right? If we could translate the impact to dollars, probably I'll be a multi-millionaire. I'm like, wow, okay, thanks for this vote of confidence. Right? Having said that, when it comes to financial sustainability, I think we're still working there. On the way there, not there yet, so hopefully soon. Nonetheless, right, just come and spin into something that you really believe in, right? And that's what, I think, you may not find now, it doesn't have to be now, right, for our audience. It doesn't have to be now, but plug it in your mind, in your heart, right? What is it that you want? Because along the way, you find that the dots will start connecting, and then the right time will come, and when you take action, something will happen. I think one thing is, the story, right, that we want to dive in, but having said that, I just sidetrack a little bit. A lot of these fundraising campaigns, they always like to paint the very sad, evoke but I feel that that's not the dignity of life, right? We're not trying to show the sadness. We're trying to show that, hey, they've managed to face the challenges, right? They've managed to what are the trials and tribulations that they face, sure. But then what steps have they taken and then what have they impacted? And they're the champion, right? You look at Yip Ping Siu yesterday, she won. I was like, wow, yeah, I was cheering for her, right? And there's a lot of tears that she's gone through to achieve what she has done, right? So don't just capture the sad part, but really about because it's about going forward. What's the way in life, right? And we live a life with dignity. We live a life with how we can help and impact others, right? So for our filmmakers, right? Yes, have a small segment that has the tuck strings, but then more importantly, what is the next step that the beneficiaries or the people you're interviewing, right? What can they do, right? What can they do to help them to move up the social mobility in life, if that's the right phrase to use, right? And don't. I think help is one way, right? But at the same time, think of it as also helping yourself, right? How can we grow internally? Right? Yeah. Experiences shape action. So get out of your comfort zone and be the change maker who you are. Thanks, White to Tall Film. Appreciate you having me here.